Welcome to the Informed Pregnancy and Parenting Podcast. I am your host, pregnancy focused chiropractor, Dr. Elliot Berlin. My guest today, last time we saw her, was very pregnant and getting ready to give birth to her first child. Now she has that first child. Madison Young, welcome back to the podcast and congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm so stoked to be here.
You're very smiley, happy looking. I mean, I just sort of want to jump into how motherhood is going, but maybe we'll work backwards. How's life as a mom?
I love it. I really do. Oh gosh, it's been so, when people are like, oh, are you getting sleep? How are you feeling? All this. And I'm sorry to say, but I've been getting so much sleep. The baby's been amazing. The baby's been a total pleasure cruise. I mean, I don't know how I lucked out, but I really did. I know the pregnancy was a little difficult, but the babe is so just like a total tenderoni.
Yeah, the pregnancy was difficult. I'm so glad to hear, everybody has different challenges along the way. Sometimes pregnancy is easy and birth is hard or parenting is hard. So, it could be any combination of things, but I'm glad that this part is going really well for you and you deserve it. And you got lucky because apples grow on trees and yours didn't fall far.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that.
Let's go back to pregnancy. I think you were 38 weeks when we recorded and maybe just starting to feel decent. You had a really tough pregnancy.
Yeah, it was really difficult. Yeah, I mean, it was hard. I was throwing up nonstop. I had hyperemesis. So it wasn't until 8 months that I finally turned a corner and then I felt amazing. And I can't recall when we spoke last if I started having pre-labor symptoms, but if I didn't, it was right after I spoke to you because I was going to Santa Barbara with my girlfriends and we were supposed to be there for 3 nights and we left the next day because all night long I was having these pre-labor symptoms. My stomach was hurting. I had to take a shower. I took like an hour-long shower because I was in so much pain. Like my back was hurting, my hips were hurting. And I was like very confident that I was going to go into labor very soon.
And you were in the zone. Time-wise, you totally could have.
Yeah. And energetically, I feel like I was just really connecting with him and I felt like he was going to be coming soon. Totally wasn't the case. He came very late.
Oh, okay. So yeah, at that point you were a week or two before your due date.
Yeah.
So if he didn't come then, did that pre-labor surging calm down?
Yeah. As soon as I got back to LA, I had like one more day. It was like I left on a Friday. I came back on Sunday or Saturday, I forget. But by Monday, it was like radio silent. Like I was totally back to normal. I mean, it was to the point where I told my sister to come down. She was going to hang out with me for a month to help me with the baby and postpartum. And she lives 2.5 hours north of SF. And she came down and everyone was just hanging out.
Okay. So was the baby just hanging out, not ready to come?
Yeah. And also too, I took off of work because I was like, I talked to my midwife, Abby Vidican, and I was like, what should I do? Should I just like work up to like the bitter end or what should I do? She's like, well, I've seen in the past, like those who work up to their due date, if you will, the baby comes later. Like it's almost like your body really needs to settle in, calm down. So she's like, if you stop working now or soon the baby might come sooner as opposed to working up to the due date. And so I was like, you know what? I'm right there with you. I'm going to stop working. And then I stopped working. It wasn't working for 4 weeks. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
It was so annoying.
So you mentioned midwife. Your plan that you were putting together was to give birth at home with a midwife.
Yes.
And also a doula and a reflexologist.
Yes. And my amazing chiropractor.
Your chiropractor and your partner, in no particular order, by the way, and not your Rottweilers.
Yeah, that was a no on the dogs, and it was such a great decision.
And that was the plan. So after all that cleared up, how was the last couple of weeks of pregnancy?
Well, it was a lot of waiting, and it was like a really odd time. I never had the conversation or even read about like the last weeks or days of pregnancy, like this unknown. You're like, it's going to happen very soon and you just don't know. And I was trying to like take myself on dates, which I'm good at doing anyways, but just like really enjoying these like last moments and kind of just like tapping into him. But like I would just go visit different neighborhoods, kind of shop around, go to different cafes and try to relax. And, you know, you can only do so much laundry and you can only rearrange the room so much. And yeah, at one point it was kind of, you just sit there and you're waiting to receive your child, like earthside. Yeah, I guess I'm an impatient person, but that was an interesting thing to kind of endure, if you will.
I don't know. I think you're just a person.
Yeah, I guess so.
And
Yeah, I mean,
before
I'm just so
something
bored.
huge and unknown happens, and you never know when it's going to happen, like there's no time frame. I think any of us would start to get a little bit, anxious, and really, I'd lose my mind.
Totally. And I kept like, just because I'm such a nut, I was looking at potential charts, like astrological charts, being like, oh, okay, well, he could be a Taurus moon. Okay. He's definitely going to be a Pisces, but maybe he'll be like, he ends up being an Aquarius moon and a Cancer rising. And so,
That was my guess.
yeah, you're like, I was going to say the same thing.
So then what changed as you got closer and closer and you're getting more stir crazy? What changed?
I mean, honestly, absolutely nothing. My 42 weeks was on a Friday. And I asked my midwife and I said, what's the plan? If I go into Saturday, can I still have the baby at home? And it was a real concern of mine because I really didn't want to go to the hospital. I really wanted to have the space here. And she said, well, if you're not like pushing by midnight on Friday, we're going to have to do a hospital transfer. And that totally tripped me out. And, she was super calm and very reassuring. And so was my amazing doula, Nina Phelan. And, we just kind of waited to see. And we're talking about options, how to naturally induce. I was like, well, what about castor oil? You read all about that. I was doing reflexology almost the whole way through. And I also did acupuncture. I stopped the acupuncture like around like 4 months because I was feeling so sick and I couldn't just lay down for an hour. And then I just never went back to it because I was feeling great. But it didn't do anything for me. And they're like, castor oil is truly like last resort. I said, all right. So Wednesday, before my son was born on a Saturday. Wednesday, that's when I want to take the castor oil. I don't want to wait till Thursday because I feel like it might be too soon. Wednesday morning, I took the castor oil. So gross, so disgusting. It was like in a smoothie and it made me throw up. I was sick to my stomach.
Gross in the sense that you can taste it in the smoothie?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just a very sensitive person in general, and that was just like so gnar. But yeah, so drank it. It was disgusting. Nothing happened. Just made me really sick.
Throwing up or also like upset stomach?
Upset stomach, throwing up. Yeah. Those were the two ones. But I was like really surprised because I know it makes you go to the bathroom, but like I didn't think it was going to make me throw up. And at that point, I have just PTSD from throwing up earlier and my just nonstop.
Right. Your whole pregnancy was violent throwing up.
Yeah. So you forget about it. And then that happened. I was like, oh my God, please not again. Please not again. But yeah, like no contraction started, no water breakage, none of it.
Okay. So in California, midwives can attend home birth from 37 to 42 weeks. You're running out of time. And your 42 weeks is on a Friday. And if by Friday at midnight, you're not pushing, they're out of their scope. You've got to go to the hospital. And it's Wednesday. And you've done all these things, including castor oil. And all you are is very uncomfortable, not in labor at all.
Yep.
Let's take a quick break and find out what happens next. Welcome back to the podcast. We're talking to Madison Young. In the birth story, we are almost at 42 weeks. You've done everything you can think of to try to get things rolling. I have a question. Is anybody checking your cervix along the way?
We didn't check it. We did a sweep. I think that was on Monday. She gave me a sweep. I was 1 centimeter. And then did another sweep. I was still 1 centimeter because we're trying to like start it, right? We're trying to start the labor. And it wasn't until what happened. Okay, so on Thursday, because now I'm freaking. I'm like, this baby is not coming. I had an OB come to the house and give me a Foley.
Oh, really? At the house?
Yeah, which was great because she can come to the house. Right. But a Foley, for those who don't know, is a balloon catheter that they put in your cervix as long as you're 1 centimeter dilated. And then they blow it up and it opens up your cervix.
Hmm.
One of the most painful things ever, ever, ever.
When they placed it or when they filled it or all of
Both,
it?
all
Okay.
of it, all of it. And so that she put it in, and immediately I'm in so much pain. My legs are shaking. Like tears are streaming down my face. And she said, it's going to be about 2 hours until you get some relief. So this is Thursday afternoon. This is Thursday at 4 when she put it in. The 2 hours after that, I start getting inconsistent contractions. And so labor, I guess, has started at that point.
Is that exciting
And
to you in the moment?
I couldn't tell if I was in labor though. I mean, I'm glad something was happening, but honestly, at that point, I feel like just between the sweeps and like doing the painful acupuncture with like them putting the needles, like the induction points for acupuncture are in the most painful places, like
Mm-hmm.
your nail beds, your pinky toes, like it's terrible. So anyways, I was just so sick of being hurt, in a way. And I was looking at my husband after they put it in. I was like, I can't believe, like, so they blow it up until 4 centimeters is what it's supposed to dilate you to. And I was looking at my husband. I was like, I can't believe this is 4 centimeters. And I mean, this ain't nothing compared to what's going to happen. And I'm in so much pain. But he was such a rock star. So 2 hours after the Foley's put in, it kind of calmed down, like the severity or the intensity of the pain. And then it starts going into these inconsistent contractions, and he's recording them, but really we're not sleeping. They're happening every like 10 minutes, 14 minutes, 12 minutes, 10 minutes, 14. It's just like kind of all over the board. And I'm texting my doula the whole time. And Nina around 4 a.m. was like, why don't I come over? And we're like, no, 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 it's okay. We have like a rhythm. She was like, you know, this is a good time to sleep because once dawn hits or like, when the sun comes up, it's a totally different ball game. And she's like, at least like, you guys can get some rest. I can take care of you. Rick can get some rest. I was like, all right, fine. That sounds great. So she comes over around 4:30. I'm on the couch. Rick, my husband, is sleeping in the bedroom, and she's doing Reiki on me and squeezing my hips with every contraction. And I'm trying to sleep as much as I can. And 8 a.m. rolls around, and it's like, she is so right. It's a totally different experience.
And this is 8 a.m. Friday morning.
8 a.m. Friday morning. Yeah.
So now you're like pretty much on a 12-hour clock.
Yes, completely. But it feels good. Like, I'm like, okay, like I'm contracting. I'm like, we're doing it. And it hasn't like really hit me yet, but I'm like, okay, we're doing it. And, around, I think it was around 9 a.m., Abby, my midwife, she comes and she checks me and she goes, great news. You're at 6 centimeters. She was like, yesterday you were at 1 centimeter. She's like, girl, you're going to have your baby by dinner. And I was like, yes, 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 yes. I'm like getting so stoked. I'm like, like it refocuses me and I'm just like, okay, like trying to ground into this, really like allowing these like waves and surges to come. And around noonish, things start to really pick up. We blow up the tub. We have our birth photographer come, which if you guys are familiar with Christina King's work, she's incredible, amazing. So she comes and yeah, things start to get rolling. And then 4 o'clock comes around and it feels like things are pretty the same. My mom comes, my sister comes. And I will say when they came, things feel like it kind of shifted. And I've, heard stories about like when new people come into your space, it can kind of slow down contractions. And even though it's my mom and my sisters, I think that's kind of what happened because it almost felt like too many cooks in the kitchen. As much as I really wanted them there, I think my body felt differently, even though my mind was like, yes, I want them there. I want the photos with them. I want them to see, her become an aunt and my mother to become a grandma. And it just kind of, I don't know. I just think that's like where it shifted. And especially since I was like, oh, I'm at my baby by dinner. I'm like, that's soon. And my
Come
body,
on over.
yeah, seriously. And I was like, when should I go in the tub? And they're like, well, do you feel like ready to push? And I was like, I have no idea what that feels like, but I do not feel like I want to push. They're like, okay, well, you can go in and out of the tub. And I mean, the contractions were really intense, and I'm also really tired and I haven't eaten anything because I didn't know this, but during labor, you're not hungry, or at least I wasn't. And then Nina, my doula, was like, why don't you and Rick just start to just when you guys cuddle and just take a nap as much as you can. So Everyone left, and it was just me and Rick on the couch. And that's when the night started to fall, and it shifted everything. Everything felt way more intense.
So when morning came and you said things shifted, was that like an upshift? Things started to pick up more? Or was that a downshift? Like sometimes in the morning things sort of peter out.
Yeah, no, it felt like an uptick. I was getting this like second wind, It's like, okay, put me in, coach. I'm ready for it.
Okay.
And yeah.
And then my second question is you said the surges, your contractions were really intense. Can
Mhm.
you describe a little bit more about where you felt them and what they felt like?
So, when I was asking people what contractions feel like, my mom, what she said, she's like, it feels like you're the worst cramps of your life. And I was like, oh, great, because I have the worst cramps in the world. So I was like, I got this. It absolutely felt like that, but it felt all consuming. Like, I mean, I would say that's a very accurate description. It's like the worst cramps of your life, but it felt like my whole body, like my hips, my back, my thighs, my uterus, like all of it was just going inwards. It just felt like just a compressor, like a vice pushing onto my body. And yeah, it was almost just like felt like a vortex in a way of like, I don't want to use the word pain, but of just intensity. It was just, it kept ramping up. And the thing is, I am very familiar with that pain. It's the consistency of it and the length of it. I mean, like I reflect on my labor, like, damn, I feel like I would have been a lot more graceful had that been shorter because in total it was like 31 or 32 plus hours of laboring. And yeah, I felt like a vortex, almost just like a tornado.
That's descriptive. Um,
Yeah.
so then everybody leaves and it starts to get dark, and you guys are just cuddling on the couch, and you said it shifted again. So
Mhm.
what was that shift?
Everything was dim. We just had candles and it felt, okay, spooky is not the right word. It felt really internal and it felt just like a very deep meditation. And because of the unknown of it, like it almost makes me like really emotional because, you know, I'm still kind of processing my birth and I'm definitely processing pregnancy. And even though pregnancy, I mean, it's 9 months, that's not a short time, it's not a long time either. And I feel like it happened. It was almost like then you don't get unpregnant, right? You don't like taper back down in pregnancy. You're just like all of a sudden not pregnant anymore. You have a baby. And that, again, like I haven't had the time to like understand it and appreciate it. So trying to find words to it, it's still really hard. But it felt like a slowing down and it felt like a going inwards when night hit. And because there was less people, it felt like I could do that because I feel like when there was the people around, like saying it out loud now, talking it out with you, I'm like, it was almost like there's this back and forth, like the engagement, which, I probably won't do for my second birth if I'm blessed to get pregnant again. But, it's the input output that's also exhausting. And then when night hit and it was just me and Rick and my doula and, the birthing team, midwife team, you're just really alone with that in a good way, but in alone with it. And it got really intense. Then I was talking to Nina, my doula, and I was like, how much longer is this? Like, does it get more intense? Because this is insanity. We've been doing this for over 24 hours. I can't eat. I had a fifth of a bagel, one side of a bagel, and I wasn't hungry. I was very hydrated, but wasn't hungry. And she was like, no, she's like, you are in transition right now. So like knowing that, like knowing like, okay, it doesn't get more intense, it just gets more frequent. So I could wrap my head around that. And mind you, like I had an altar set up, I had a crystal grid set up, and I put all these crystals that like are really great for just like flow and movement leading up to my birth. And then when I wasn't going into labor, I was like, you know what, this is too slow of a crystal grid. I'm changing out all the stones because I had a lot of aquamarine and all that. Very soothing. I was like, I need something more like more vitality. I need like ruby. I need like carnelian, more stimulating, which I think helped. But, I had like deities on my altar. And the one thing that kept anchoring me and pushing through was actually Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant was on your altar?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, when I started like laboring, I was like, all I could think is like Mamba mentality focus. Like, what would Kobe do? Like, I have like
Oh,
Mother Mary on my altar, and I was just like kept thinking about Kobe and that Mamba mentality. And that's what kind of helped me ground and focus and get through the surges, oddly enough.
wow. So powerful. And two things occur to me as night falls.
Mm.
Number one, dinner came and went.
Yeah, so that was discouraging.
I wondered. And two, nightfalls sort of starts to make you think midnight's not that far away.
Exactly. So, I was really proud of the work I was doing though. So I was like, there's no way this baby's not. First of all, I'm feeling him. I don't feel like pushing yet. I didn't know what that sensation felt like until much later. And I was like, this is what they were talking about. But I'm feeling confident that I'm going to have this baby like very soon. So as, dinner came and went, night's falling. I think it's like 9:30 at this point, and I'm trying to focus. I'm trying to focus real hard. So the dilation station on the toilet, you've heard of this before. So my midwife was like, why don't you just go sit on the toilet? Having a contraction on the toilet for me was one of the most intense feelings. I keep trying to like stay away from the word pain, but at this point, I truly feel like I was suffering. Like this was insanity. So I was like, you know what? We had this like beautiful moment, me and my husband and Nina in the bathroom, and we just like it was a vortex. Like it felt like we weren't even in our meat suits, right? It just felt like spirits, like us as like light beings, just connecting and bringing this baby and talking to this baby. And I was like, you know what? Mommy's focused. I'm going to bring my baby here. Let's do this. That mama mentality. I'm here for you, baby. And I'm sitting and I'm going through, I was like, if I can just get through 10 contractions on the toilet, I was like, I'm confident I'm going to have this baby immediately. So I do the 10 contractions, which is a really big deal for me. And Abby's like, why don't I check you? I was like, great. And again, I'm feeling good. She checks me. She tells me I'm at 7 centimeters. Granted, I was at 6 centimeters at 8 in the morning, and now I'm at 7 centimeters. I just start to cry. I was
Wow.
so defeated. I was like, you're kidding me. I mean, like, even right now, I could cry. I was so disappointed. And I guess myself, and it didn't make any sense to me. Yeah. And especially like with how much focus and concentration and that beautiful moment we had. And she said, not only said, she goes, you're 7 centimeters. She's like, that's not a big deal. She's like, your cervix is paper thin. And they're like, I've seen people dilate to 10 in like an hour. And that wasn't comforting to me. I was like, F this. This is nuts. Like, I don't know how much more I can give. I'm so tired. But that wasn't kind of like the worst of it. She goes, okay, before in the morning, she could feel the whole baby's head when she did the 6 centimeters. She's like, that's great. That's why she said, I'm gonna have the baby by dinner. And by the way, it was not like she was promising me a baby. It just, that was the way it was looking, it was like
Sure.
everything was so promising.
Of course.
And then she said that the baby, she's like, she can only feel like a smidgen of the baby's head. She goes, he tilted his head, he moved his
Oh
head.
no.
So he's no longer in a chin tucked position.
Oh,
And I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. So now, like, the baby's even in a position to really descend. So she goes, we can do spinning babies exercises, which were like really intense as well. So the midwife assistant, Johanna, she's amazing. What she did is I would lean back on her. She would take her hands around my belly towards the bottom, towards my pelvis. And during a contraction, she would lift up and in, and I would tilt my pelvis during a contraction. I mean, I was like, you're joking. Like, this is what?
wow.
Yeah, it was so painful. And so Johanna's like, we just need to do three. I was like, okay. The first one, I was like, okay, I can't believe there's two more. Mamba mentality, let's go. Second one, I was like, one more, Madison. We got one more, three. And I was so proud of myself. Like, I mean, between like the dilation station thing and this, I was like, okay, let's get this baby here. I mean, every single time you think you meet your edge, you get pushed further. And I'm like, you just surprise yourself. I'm like, I can't believe I have this much resilience and endurance. Like, this is and stamina. It was just wild. So we go back to Abby and she was like, you did all 10? And we're like, 10? She's like, yeah, it's
Oh,
10. And I'm like, look at my husband and he's looking at me like, I am so sorry, baby. Like, he looks so helpless. Like, he just wants to do something.
it's
And
our
by the
nature.
way,
We don't like to see
totally.
you in pain. We like to be solution oriented.
Totally. And by the way, just like a shout out to my husband, Rick, he was so incredible. And I had zero doubt that he would be, but to experience that and for him to be there, like there was bruises on my hips from him squishing my hips. And at the time, like it felt so good. And like, you don't even think about it. But remember, like every 2, 3 minutes, he was pushing all his force on my hips, massaging my feet, massaging my body. And he didn't sleep at all. Like every 3 seconds, like there's during the photos, you get them back and like you see him like just passing out in between contractions. And just anyway, shout out to him. He's a rock star.
Shout out to Rick.
Yeah, shout out to Rick.
I feel like the shout out to Rick is a good time to take another break.
Sure.
I wish you were able to take a break.
Yeah, no kidding.
At this part in the story, but we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll find out the rest of the story. Welcome back. We're talking to Madison Young, and man, you've got the dilation station 10, and then you got these crazy maneuvers because the baby's not lined up with the runway quite right anymore. And you get through 3 and then find out there's 7 more. I can't even imagine what you're feeling like in your mind and in your body and in your soul, really.
Yeah, you just feel defeated. And did all the 10, checked me again. The baby's still in that position. I was like, if I was guaranteed a baby in like 4 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is. And by the way, it's 10 o'clock. So I'm like in my head, I'm like, probably have to go to the hospital anyways. Mm-hmm. I was like, I want to go to the hospital. I want an epidural because I haven't started pushing at this point. I still need energy for that. So Abby, she's like, let's do it. Like what I love so much about my birth is that throughout the whole way, my whole team was supporting my vision and doing everything they could to, and safely, by the way, to let me have the birth that I want. It gave me choice. There wasn't like, okay, we're doing this. And this is what's going to happen. I was like, I wanted it at home. It was going great. Even like when I was like, the head's turned, like we can change it. Like, I mean, we can not flip the baby, but we can turn the head by doing these exercises. So I really appreciated that about my birth. When I was like, I want to go to the hospital, she goes, okay, let's go to the hospital. Abby gets Dr. Crane. I go to Cedars. Within 15 minutes of me saying I want to go to the hospital, I was being checked in. Granted, I live very close to Cedars.
Yeah, you must.
Yeah, I live very close. I mean, you can throw a stone and hit it. And then we go in. I'm like, oh God, I get the epidural. Highly recommend it. It was amazing. And he was like, he came in and he was like, why don't you guys rest? Which was like music to our ears. Rest, and then we'll start to push in a couple hours. Great. We both fall asleep. First time. Nina comes with us, by the way. An angel. She's been with us for over 24 hours.
Wow.
Angel. And so the next morning comes around. We're well rested. He's like, let's start pushing. Gave me a little bit of Pitocin. Now I know what it feels like to wanting to push. I was like, oh, okay, I'm ready. Okay, guys, hike my legs up. I'm ready.
What were you feeling?
Honestly, I felt like you had a poo. And
okay.
Yeah. And when the contractions were coming, I was like, all I wanted to push because like, even though I have the epidural, like it still feels like I have to push. Like you can still feel a surge. So I start push for 3.5 hours. The doctor's trying to move his head in me, which is wild. And he goes, you need a rest. I was like, okay, I'll rest a little bit. I don't want to because it feels good to push. And I feel like I was doing a really good job pushing. He's like, my husband, I thought it was like 15 minutes into pushing. He said it was like an hour and a half. He goes, I could see the baby. I was like, oh my God, what's the color of his hair? Because he has dark hair. I was like, oh my God, my baby. Like, this is the first time I'm actually so close to actually getting my baby, And it was just like, oh my God, I was so happy. And I'm like, again, I'm getting like a third wind at this point. I'm so stoked. Push. He tells me to rest for 30 minutes. I do. And I guess the legal limit in California to push is 4 hours. That's what he said. 4 hours with an epidural. Otherwise, you're going to have to do a C-section. And Dr. Crane wanted the vaginal birth for me too. I mean, he really tried everything. Dr. Crane tried everything. He wakes me up at the 4th hour, right? And he goes, okay, you can push for a little bit, but if the baby doesn't come, like we unfortunately have to do a C-section. I'm like, wait, you made me rest for 30 minutes. Like, don't I get like rollover
Credit.
minutes. Like, yeah, like I can do this. I was like, I swear I can do this. Please, 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 I can do this. And he was like, listen, if the baby was actually coming down, I'd be more than happy to let's do that. But he's like, let's be honest, he's not. So I was like, you know what? Just get me my baby. I don't care. Get me my baby. I want to see my baby. I'm ready for my baby. Do whatever you got to do. So I got a C-section, like such the opposite end of the spectrum of what I was anticipating for my birth. It was so wild.
Yeah, so many questions. So, like physically, what was the cesarean like?
Yeah, it was not great. So like the epidural like would wear off, by the way, like very quickly. I don't know why. I'm naturally like a strawberry blonde, like so I have a lot of red in me, and apparently redheads like just eat through pain medication. And the epidural was the same thing. So when they were sewing me back up, I felt some of it.
Boy,
And
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't bad, but I could still feel some. By the way, the baby was 9 pounds, 4 ounces.
Oh my
And
goodness.
everyone in the operation room went, whoa, as soon as the baby came out. And then when they said his weight out loud, everyone was just like, oh my God. And Dr. Crane was like, he would have been able to come out. And if he did, he's like, I would have tore terribly. So it kind of, worked out to a certain degree, but the recovery was intense.
We'll get to recovery in just a second. If I remember correctly, part of the reason you wanted to give birth at home was because of your hospital experience with hyperemesis, that you didn't feel listened to. Am I making that up, or is that?
No, you're totally spot on. Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Crane's not famous for that MO. He's so gentle and so patient.
Yeah.
Did you, in the end, was your hospital experience therefore, just in terms of that dynamic, what you expected, or did it beat your expectations?
Oh my God. The staff at Cedars was incredible. It shifted my perspective again, which was really lovely. Like I had more faith in the hospital system, and the bedside manner was so, so incredible. And I really did enjoy it. I mean, I was there for 5 days after, and it also instilled a lot of confidence in Rick and I, like kind of having someone nearby to like, oh yeah, you're doing it right. Or, the lactation consultants, and just everyone was very gentle. And also they listened to us because, they're like, okay, we're going to take the baby over here. We're going to do a heel stick prick, whatever it is, to check for jaundice, or we're going to check him for this. And we're like, oh, no, we want the baby to stay here. We're not going anywhere without the baby. And they go, not a problem. We'll bring everything here. And everything was brought to us. So that was really nice. That was incredible.
I'm really glad for you that you had that experience. One sort of wonders if the fear, so to speak, of going to the hospital, being treated in a way that doesn't feel empowering, kind of holds you back a bit, because it's like the contrast, between the autonomy that you have at home and the autonomy you thought you'd have at the hospital is so great. So you said recovery was difficult.
Yeah, it was really intense. And, I would assume that the laboring for so long, the pushing for so long kind of contributed to that. Like I kind of had like a little sampling of all the birthing experiences. I got a little bit of water birth, a little bit of pushing at the hospital with an epidural, and then I had a C-section. And yeah, I was texting you, and, I've had brain surgery before, and that was an easier recovery than the cesarean. I mean, thankfully, my husband is so strong. Like he had to pick me up and take me everywhere. Like I couldn't get up to breastfeed. Like breastfeeding while my baby latched immediately, my nipples were so raw because I couldn't get into the optimal position to sit up to nurse him. So he was like
Great
tugging.
latch.
Yeah, I mean, he was able to feed, but oh my God, my nipples were like, I was in so much pain. It really turned me off of breastfeeding first. Like I still breastfeed, but I was just like, oh my God, please tell me it gets better. And when I healed and I was able to sit upright, I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Kid knows what to do.
Wow. What a journey in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I would ask maybe one or two questions to wrap up. What did you learn about you from the whole experience?
Well, if you would have asked me yesterday, I would have had a different answer. I was thinking about this, like, had we had this conversation like 3 weeks postpartum, I would have said something different. Yesterday, I would have said something different. Today, I'll probably say something different from a couple weeks from now. But,
So you're still learning.
I'm still learning and I'm still processing, honestly. I mean, I keep going back and forth of like, I felt so powerful. I felt so powerful and I brought a life in, and I feel so blessed that I have a baby, that I had a healthy pregnancy. I had a healthy birth. I mean, throughout all of it, even though all those things, it was still healthy. None of us were under distress at all. And yesterday, I felt a little shook. Like my ego kind of, I was like, damn, I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. I mean, yes, having a healthy baby, that was number one. But I think on a personal goal was to have a baby vaginally, have a baby without drugs. And again, that makes me emotional now. I'm still kind of grieving that. I know it's still a real birth. I know I still have a baby, but that was a goal of mine. And I'm starting to, go back and forth and ebb and flow with the idea of like, that wasn't the karmic path of this baby. It's not about me. I was the vessel. The baby didn't want to endure a vaginal birth. Baby wanted to just dip out. But today I do reflect back and I do think how powerful that was. And I mean, grateful is what I feel. Like, I think I just kept surprising myself, honestly, hitting each of those edges and hitting those like, oh, we're so close, but actually we're going to take this turn. Oh, wait, just one more thing. It was just like always like, oh, but there's still one more thing. And I was really grounded and calm and focused. And I will say I'm really surprised myself a little bit with that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's powerful. And just like you said, you're still processing and you're still learning things about you from the experience. But I think it's really healthy to grieve the loss of the experience that you were hoping for, that you envisioned and you wanted. And it doesn't take away from the joy and gratefulness that you have for the healthy baby and for the people who helped you get there through the detour route from your original plan. So
yeah,
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you so much. And thank you for listening also to like my really lengthy story.
No, it's your story. And I just think until you go through birth, I don't think you could even begin to imagine what it's like. Even when people close to you describe contractions to you and what they feel like, it was just sort of an idea until you had them yourself. And now you could really understand. And by sharing so open and freely and honestly, I think you'll at least give other people a glimpse into what that journey could be like. And, the resilience that you had in your case to be able to, when a curve came in the road, be able to embrace the curve and, keep the journey going. So
yeah.
Thank you for being here and thank you for sharing. Crystals. Crystals is your life. I'm going to try to bring my whole family and visit Open Eye Crystals on Sunday this weekend. But tell us where we can find you online.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. Open Eye Crystals at Open Eye Crystals is our handle, openeyecrystals.com. If you find us on Instagram, DM me. I'm on there and let's connect. I want to get you into crystals. I want to connect with you. And every Friday we do a crystal sale online on Instagram from noon to about 6 p.m. So I talk about how to use them in ritual and which ones work with each other really well. So please come visit.
Amazing. And to our listeners, thanks for listening and for being here. And if you'd like to connect with us online, we're also on that Instagram at Dr. Berlin. It's DoctorBerlin.
Doctor, give me the news. I got a whole lot of questions for you.